time period, was the Occupy movement going on at that time, and you guys tried to capture what that looked like in space? That's one question. Another question is, with the question of the redlining is awesome work. I'm thinking too about efforts to make banks more accountable. Clearly they're not accountable, but the whole 1% thing happening. But in the sense that if you do business in a community now, there are certain amounts of credits tax credits that have to go to development in that area. So that's been an improvement, right, made by legislation. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting to think about a trajectory and in time and efforts to do reparations to be returned, or have the banks pay back to communities where they make money and hold money, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or and then the Occupy question. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so the Occupy question, it was not at the same time as we were doing our research. It would have been really interesting. In terms of the reparations, the teacher of this class was a real radical, and she used to have the students marching down to the latest demonstration in Seattle. So the students would be out of the classroom and they'd be gone. So they were very well aware already of kinds of struggles that were historical and contemporary political struggles, but they hadn't really put those into the spatial component. And I felt like what we brought was this awareness of the actual relevance in terms of their own neighborhoods, the relevance of a lot of these sort of larger political struggles that they had, like over Occupy. They might have just thought, well, that's the downtown because that's you just go to downtown. That's the best place to occupy a space. But in fact, they started to think, oh, well, let's go to they might. Oh, I would hope. Let's go to where the second Black Panthers headquarters was and make a statement by standing there in that space, because that has a historical legacy for this city and for us. And a lot of the kids, two of the girls who were doing the African American team were African American, and so it's really visceral sort of sense of, I own this. I mean, this space is about my history too, and it's so easy for students to lose that history, that even recent history in their own cities, because we tend to see. I mean, it's the downtown and it's the place where we do sports and stuff, and we kind of lose some of those moments where people died fighting for something, or really put their necks on the line. So yeah.
Susie, you said you could tell us ad nauseum about neoliberalisation of education and the problems with that. So that's one type of geography of education, a critique of the education system as it is. And then this project seems to be very much about critical pedagogy, really,
Yeah.
what geographic education could be. There's two very different strands of work in your career. Obviously, I was wondering, is there any way of putting those together, or do you think the neoliberalising trends in education are such that there's no space for this kind of critical geographic pedagogy?
Well, that's a great question, Sarah. As I was saying to Tracy, even that I was trying through this project and through this talk to get away from my natural inclination, which is sort of Eeyore, doom and gloom, it'll never work, everything's bad and it's getting worse. So yeah, most of my theoretical work up to this time, as you know, has been looking at the loss of spaces for children and people in general since the end of the Keynesian period. Not like that was a wonderful, idyllic moment, but at least there were certain kinds of protections, and those are all sort of disappearing with neoliberalism, and particularly in schools. And so after sort of working with those ideas for a long time and looking at how those spaces and a lot of ideas are under attack, and looking at how children as subjects are being formed more and more in orientation to the market rather than in orientation to a sense of a social good, which for better or worse is the sort of liberal promise. I just wanted to see, how much you can do in various kinds of projects, critical pedagogic projects in the classroom. And I have to say, one of the the things that was the saddest for me was that we did start this in a public school, which was in 95% African American school in Seattle, and we couldn't get into the school system. We absolutely, I got in here because I knew this teacher and I knew this school, and it's a progressive school, and they're like, come in, this school. I couldn't even get into the public school system, and I have a lot of friends in the education department, and they said, we can't even get in, and we're in education. They don't have time anymore. The teachers can't afford the time. And because they're being assessed in terms of, well, everybody here knows, they're being assessed more and more in terms of the numbers game. And so we tried to run it through a YMCA and an after-school program at this school. And then all the students had, they would come, and it was meant to be a 10-week project, and you had to build the skills up. So, you can't just say, okay, so map this. Like you had to, what's going on with your daily life, and let's see how to map it. You had to sort of build trust, and then you had to do the paper maps, and then you had to use the computer in certain kinds of ways, and then here's what we're trying to, it's a 10-week project. We had only 2 students that were the same student through the whole class. All of the other students would come in and come out. They had to take care of their kids, their siblings. The parents were working, and they had to go home that day. They had sports another day. There was something that they wanted to do over here. There was a drug arrest in the corner, and the parents got worried, and so they picked them up in the car. There was just so many, and we couldn't even take them on a field trip. We were going to bring them on a field trip to the Burke Museum in Seattle, the University of Washington campus, and show them the geography labs and all this great stuff. And we had the truck, we had the permission slips, and it just couldn't happen because they couldn't commit that far ahead, like 2 weeks. So where am I going with this? I guess back to where I started, which is like it's all going badly wrong. So yes, the parents who can either afford to go to the private school or they have a financial scholarship get this good stuff, and the students in the public schools didn't. And that's one of the great tragedies of this kind of critical pedagogic project. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I can't force the public schools to. It's like, this is really good. Bring this in. Oh, yeah, right. I have no power. So I don't know. I'd love to hear other people talk about it, especially who are in education. It's yeah.
Thank you very much. Given what you just said, are there any opportunities where you work with teachers? I mean, in terms of building a cascade of
There are more opportunities to work with teachers, and I haven't gone that route yet, but that would be a good avenue in terms of like trying to sneak this kind of project in. But again, it's the teachers in the northern part of the city, which is the more wealthy part of the city, north of the Ship Canal, is the way we put it, have a lot more leeway in terms of what they're allowed to teach in the classrooms. But those are already the students who are more privileged. And the teachers who are teaching in the southern part of the city are more disciplined in terms of what they're allowed to teach. So the very communities that you're hoping to bring these kinds of critical pedagogic ideas in, and it's not like the teachers don't know that this would be great. They do. They would love to do it, but they have less leeway in terms of what their principals allow them, what the district allows them to do. Because they have to have their students get a certain grade on a certain number, and the students are struggling to reach that number, and the teachers are accountable, and the school is accountable, and the principal's accountable, and they might lose funding, etc., if they don't reach certain numbers. So I actually have a teacher of one of my children went to a alternative school, which had alternative critical pedagogies. And one of the teachers there loved teaching at this school because she could teach whatever she wanted, and it was kind of dewy, and with the harmonica, and they all come and sit in the rug, and we read stories together. It was wonderful. I love this school, which is K-5 school. But she felt like she wasn't having the social justice impact she wanted to have, so she quit that school and moved to a school that was much more underprivileged in terms of the student body. And she was not allowed to, she'd been teaching 25 years. She was one of the best teachers I've ever met, 5th grade teacher. She was not allowed to use any of her experience in teaching that student body because they needed to be sitting in their chairs and, getting the answers right. So here again, critical thinking for the privileged kids and a teacher deliberately trying to bring those skills to different communities and not able to.
I think I should bring this to a close because we're ready for the next sessions. So I'm going to do that. But I'm sure, thank you so much for
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm sure you're available.